Come seeker, come traveler, come all humankind, online or in person, whomever you love.
Come. Come and be welcome at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Cheyenne. Here we are building a community of refuge where all have equal worth and are invited into spiritual exploration as a foundation for hope, compassionate service, and action.
This is a place where questions are encouraged, a place with room for all of who you are.
This is a place full of works in progress, a place for being human together.
Welcome. It's good to be here.
Settle in and exhale. This is a time for community.
Good morning. I'm Emily Smith. I'm a member of the UUCC board, and I'd like to welcome you to our church, where we're on a shared journey to find meaning, connection, and community together. If you are new to us, please fill out a blue welcome card and drop it in the offering basket so we can share information about our activities with you and help you find what nourishes your spirit here. Note cards in your pew are available so that you can write joys and sorrows for our pastoral prayer. We pass an additional basket during the offering to gather these. You can write your name or you can be anonymous. You can also write "do not share" if you have something you would like to be held in care by our worship team, but not spoken aloud in prayer. So we have lots of activities and events happening each week in our community, and here's a few that are coming up. Our faith development class for 5 to 12-year-olds will be downstairs today at 11 following our worship. If you haven't gotten a chance to volunteer with our community group, the next service date coming up is March 15th. Please reach out to Lori McGill, and I don't think Lori is here today, or you can reach out to Julianne. Julianne, raise your hand. Perfect. If you need to get your name on that volunteer list or get more information. Edith Cook is beginning a writing group. This group will attend together via Zoom. Please contact Edith today after church for more info, although I'm not sure how to contact Edith, so it says also get a hold of Jed. So I do know Jed is here, so if you're interested in Edith's writing group, please go find Jed, and I think he can connect you to that. And then lastly, a periodic reminder that we have a lot of great ongoing groups here at church. We want to remind you about the Bird and Bell meditation with Jean Heater. So if Jean, you could raise your hand and let folks know who you are. There's Jean over there. Thank you, Jean. We have yoga for everybody with Audrey Bunton, and I don't think Audrey is here this morning, but we have yoga with Audrey. We have the Lectio Divina poetry group being led by Lauren Danley, and so if Lauren, you could raise your hand so people know who you are. I see you, Lauren, right there in front of me. Lauren. People point at her so that yep, there she is, right there in the pink sweater. She's busy reading. I know, we're calling you out for being the Lectio Divina poetry group. You're their leader. So go talk to Lauren if you're interested in that. Reverend Elizabeth is out on parental leave. So please grab any of these folks after service for more information about their weekly groups. And so now we're going to have Elizabeth Thurston come up and talk about our Share the Plate partner, which is Juntos.
Good morning. If you were here last week, you heard directly from Antonio Serrano, who is one of the organizers of Juntos Wyoming. Their mission, if you weren't here last week, is to educate, organize, and advocate with people of all backgrounds to eradicate discrimination and inequality in all its forms. So they're working against discrimination, and they're working for local connections, building local power, and helping local communities who sadly are being targeted. One effort that I'd like to highlight today is a new project called No Hate Wyoming. It is, the goal is to combat hate speech and protect marginalized communities. And the two major elements of this campaign are that you can report hate propaganda on their website so that it can be followed up on and hopefully reversed or at least addressed. And then there's also a database of hate symbols, which is something that I had not expected to find on the website. And I guess I'm pretty naive, but many of the things that I found on the website were surprising to me. So it's a good way to educate yourself about some of the more subtle forms of discrimination in our society. And the work that we do with Juntos is essential to them. We're one of their biggest and longest time partners, and I hope that you will give generously this morning. Thank you.
And so, as we are gathered, giving from our resources, we sustain the work of both this church and our community organizations to broaden the reach of our values. And you can find a text-to-give number or a QR code in your order of service, use your Realm app for electronic giving, or your Share the Plate offerings and pledges may also be dropped in the baskets as they pass. They're not good at not holding grudges, is exactly correct. In fact, no one in Grudgeville had ever forgotten a grudge. And so as the traveler walked in to town, they found that every person in Grudgeville had a large backpack or a hefty bag slung over their shoulders, filled with mementos of every fight they'd ever had, every grudge they'd ever kept, everything that had ever been broken by someone else. Every single person was weighed down by these burdens, hunched over, some nearly stumbling under their burdens. The traveler was a little confused. Who would want to live like this? So they asked one of the people of Grudgeville, not knowing yet what was inside, "What is in this bag that you keep?" Well, the first person in Grudgeville pulled open the bag and started taking things out. "This is the alarm clock that my cousin broke when we had a sleepover when I was 7 years old. And this is the cuckoo clock that my great-grandfather made that his brother broke. We haven't spoken to him since. We don't speak to his children or their children either." On and onward, pulling things out. This one is from this slight. This one is from this accident. This one is from this on purpose nasty thing that happened. Whew. He became quite energized at the telling. But it also seemed that there were a lot of things in the bottom of that bag that this person didn't even know why they were in there. I don't know, but we don't talk to the Smiths anymore because of it. This one makes me somehow angry at the neighbors, but I'm not sure why. This is just slimy. It feels yucky and makes me mad. After a while, the traveler had these conversations with a few people and thought they might have an idea. They said, I just wonder if it might be worth trying a few new words that maybe the people of Grudgeville don't know. Can we guess what one of those words might be? It starts with an S. I heard it out there. I'm sorry. And then, if someone were to say, I'm sorry, that there might even be a response to that. Perhaps, I forgive you? Well, the people of Grudgeville were a little suspicious of this whole new thing with words they hadn't heard in generations. But they agreed that their burdens were awfully heavy. So they agreed to try it. One man walked up to his brother with this broken alarm clock. His brother said, "It was an accident, and I'm sorry." They took a deep breath, and the man said, "I forgive you." And with that, the alarm clock disappeared from his hands, lightening his burden just a bit. He stood a little straighter. Didn't feel horrible. So he decided to try it the other way. Found someone with a handful of some mistake he had made and said, "I'm sorry. I forgive you," said the other. Again and again, more and more enthusiastically, people began to think through their grudges, to wonder which ones they could get rid of. Backpacks lightened, bags emptied. Some of the slimy bits just faded away without even being noticed. And soon, many people were divested of their burdens completely. Some people remained with a small purse, a coin purse, or a little backpack, things they weren't quite ready to forgive or forget just yet. But everyone breathed more lightly. Everyone walked a little bit easier. Some people even danced. And soon, they decided perhaps Grudgeville wasn't the name they wished to have for their town anymore. They thought they might rename it. And my wondering for you all is, what do you think might be a better name for this town? Sorry? Meowtown. I like it. And so, yeah, so there are a lot of things we could name a town. Grudgeville was no more. Thank you all so much for being with me in this story. And now let us move to our time of prayer as we continue our journey together. And so, as we come together this week once more, may we hold space for one another in prayer or in meditation on all that we gather as a community to face. Spirit of life and of love, each week, we hope to support each other. We hope to be a comfort in hard times, to celebrate joys, the happy moments, to dwell together in the wonder and mystery of this magnificent, ever-changing life. We gather and we share with one another our joys and gratitudes, our sadnesses. We offer thanks from Lauren Danley for all the students of the Crystal Magic class who have made it a true joy. We offer a happy birthday to Tim Thorson, and congratulations as he goes to Washington, D.C. to present at a national conference this week. We offer our gratitude and our ongoing support for Walter, who continues to heal after hip surgery. We offer our care for those who are struggling with health or in need of support. We offer our hopes for those still facing uncertainty with jobs, with their ways of life in these turbulent times. We offer our love to our trans and queer community members, to all those who need good care, to all those who need acceptance and who are finding it harder and harder to know what spaces are safe and healthy for them. May this space continue to be a comfort and a blessing. May we acknowledge the changing seasons, even as our political spaces have become difficult. We know that all things grow and change, that the earth is warming, and that blossoms have already come forth from the ground with the courage to renew themselves once more. So may we give thanks for all that is new and good, and hold room in our hearts for our joy. May we also hold room for whatever joys are yet unshared, the sorrows too tender to speak aloud, and find in this space always the peace, comfort, and community that holds and enfolds us. Amen. And blessed be.
Today's sacred message is entitled The Good Samaritan, commentary by A.J. Levine. Amy Jill Levine says, parables in general are not children's stories, and they are not banal statements of the obvious. There is an old line about religion, that religion is supposed to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So if we hear a parable and we think, isn't that nice? Or isn't that lovely? We may be hearing it through our ears, but we're not hearing it through first century Jewish ears. Because those first century Jewish ears knew that parables were designed to provoke or to indict. Which brings us to the Good Samaritan. You know the story. A lawyer comes up to Jesus. They have a bit of a conversation, and the lawyer says to Jesus at one point, so who is my neighbor? I used to think that was a very snarky question, but it turns out it's a very good question because we ask that all the time. We need to know that who our neighbors are. They are the people who have the same rights and the same responsibilities as we do. So neighbors are people who can vote in our elections. Canadians, their neighbors, they can't vote in our elections, but they have different rights and different responsibilities. So it's actually a very good legal question. But Jesus is not concerned about the minutiae of legality. Jesus is concerned about love, and he knows that Jewish law says not only you shall love your neighbor as yourself, but you shall also love the stranger who dwells among you because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So the lawyer says, who is my neighbor? Jesus could have given him a discourse on what constitutes a neighbor, but instead he hurls a parable at him, which means the lawyer is about to be indicted, Jesus explains how a fellow was going down to Jerusalem, to Jericho Road. By the way, you always go up to Jerusalem and down from Jerusalem. You could be on the moon and you go up to Jerusalem, but this fellow's going down, and he's waylaid by bandits. He's beaten, robbed, stripped, and left half dead in a ditch. And he's wondering, who's going to help me? Along the road comes a priest, and the priest sees him, and he walks by on the other side. And shortly thereafter comes to Levite, and he sees him, and he walks by him on the other side too. Countless commentators who know nothing about Judaism explain that the reason the priest and the Levite walked by the fellow in the ditch is because they're afraid if he's dead and they touch him, or if he dies while they are attending to him, that then they will become ritually impure because of having touched a corpse. Does that sound vaguely familiar? It's nonsense. It's nonsense. There's no law preventing a Levite from coming in touch with a corpse, and Luke gives them no excuse, and no excuse would have mattered. The best explanation I heard for why they walked by came from the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Here's what King said. He says, "I'm not sure what happened, but here's what my imagination tells me is possible. These men were afraid. The priest and the Levite asked themselves, if I stop by to help this man, what will happen to me? Because there are bandits on the road. But the Samaritan, that's a different question. The Samaritan asked, if I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? And King goes on to say, if I don't stop to help the sanitation workers in Memphis, for example, what will happen to them? And we know what happened to King because there are bandits on the road. But the issue here is, how do we ask the right question? In antiquity, they actually refer to this parable as the parable of the man who fell among the robbers. We're the person in the ditch. And we might think that with the Samaritan coming, I'd rather die than acknowledge one of that group helped me. And then it's harder, even harder, because we have to realize the face of the enemy is also the image and likeness of God, and the face of the person we think might kill us is the very person who might save our lives. Yes, there are bandits on the road, and yes, it's dangerous. But what Jesus is saying here is recognize that everyone is a human being. Recognize that the person you saved might be the person you think is the enemy. You're not the Samaritan. You're the person in the ditch. Who will save you? And can you acknowledge that everyone has the possibility of doing that? If you can do that, the parable has worked on you. And for our meditative music, we have on the insert of your order of service, the song, I believe we sang that last Sunday. So we are going to sing it again today, entitled, I Need You to Survive by Hezekiah Walker. And we'll do this 3 times.
Welcome to remain seated, but we want to remember that we need one another. So in your insert, let us remember as we sing multiplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive.
For our core reading today is from Love at the Center by Adam Robersmith. My Unitarian Universalism is equally informed by two ways of approaching the world. I am a universalist. I believe in a love so powerful, so complete, that everything and everyone is held in its all-inclusive embrace. I am also an eco-theologian. I believe that the nature of existence is revealed in our universe and the world of which we are a part. There is a complexity here, though. I fully believe that love is foundational to reality. I also believe that the human understanding of love, the feelings, the longings, the actions that we name as love, is not something we can presume the rest of the experiences of life experiences just as we do. So, what can the natural world tell us about love? Where is love in our broader ecological existence? How can eco-theology reveal the love at the center of our being? Trained as a scientist and a minister, I am guided by the interconnections of life and meaning, biology and religion, ecology and theology. Ecology, like theology, is a study of interconnectedness. Religion is a practice of interconnectedness, a means through which we humans acknowledge, develop, and value our relatedness with each other and that which is larger than ourselves. I have come to understand through science, experience, and religion that there is nothing which exists alone. All things exist in interdependence, interconnection. Even that which appears to be self-contained, a distant star, for example, is embedded in an entanglement of links and bonds that may not easily be individually known, but exist just the same. Relationship is the basis of being. Many other people have thought about this before me. I have found theological kin in process and relational theologies, even though their language and mine are not the same. C. Robert Messel explains Bernard Loomer's idea of relational power. Relational power is the ability to affect and be affected. The relational nature of existence, then, is the reflection of the divine. Messel writes, God loves perfectly, so God must be the supremely related one who shares fully in the experience of every creature, who is at once fully steadfast and fully responsive. Carter Haywood goes even further to describe God's relational prayer. As in any relation, God is affected by humanity and creation, just as we are affected by God. With us, by us, through us, God lives, God becomes, God changes, God speaks, and God acts, God suffers, and God dies in the world. Love, writes Haywood, is the active realization of relation. God is love. Love is God. To God is to love. Love in relational and process theologies is not the warm and mushy feelings of pop music and romantic comedies. Love is what allows the world to exist. It is what holds all things together and makes existence coherent. Love is relationship at its best, a way of being that requires relational power, a power that values and respects that which it connects.
Love is that which connects. From the smallest pieces of existence all the way up to the largest, we find fundamental laws of interconnection, of attraction. We find that nothing holds together unless everything holds together. Even the particles too small to have a gravity are entrapped and intermingled with one another. The bodies too large to comprehend interplay, interconnect. Whole galaxies moving through each other in great cosmic dances at every moment. And here, on this human plane, we seek to understand, to find meaning in all of those ways of being connected. For we move together as well in dances of history and place, trying to find what is meaningful in the world. And so we tell stories. Stories like that of Grudgeville, stories like that of the Good Samaritan. For in order to be healed and whole, in order to be centered in ourselves, we must be in relationship with others. And we must know what those relationships are, what they can be. It is easy to say we should be in loving relationship. But who among us has never held a grudge, has never found someone who just irritates you, has never in your life been the person who was the cause of someone's irritation or anger? All this is part of being human, as natural as the building and dissolution of molecules, which is part of our existence, of our being. And so we find these stories, and we find our way back to them again and again. In biblical theory and theological work, there is something called exegesis. Exegesis is the study of stories and the piece where we take them apart to see where we are in these stories, what is to be found in their deeper meaning. We might look at words or perspectives and then turn them and look again more deeply. What do translations do to the body of the story? What happens when you look from the perspective of the man in the ditch, or the perspective of the Levite, or the perspective of the Samaritan? What happens in Grudgeville when you look from the perspective of the person trying to say, "I'm sorry," or the person who needs to forgive and let go of the grudge? And so it is that we come back again and again. In the story of the Samaritan, one of the most interesting pieces is that Samaritans were somebody who was on the outside. They were the people who might go down to Jerusalem, because Samaritans believed in a universe that was not centered on Jerusalem. They had a different perspective of where the holy existed and who and what revealed God to them than the Jewish people centered around Jerusalem and Judea. And so they were considered not people to be pitied, as we sometimes think of in the modern world, but the enemy, heretics. Anyone here ever been called a heretic or thought they might be one? Even today, Unitarian Universalists trace a background of being heretics, being the people who are considered outside the bounds. Usually we're considered the outside the bounds of Christianity. Universalists with no concept of hell. Unitarians believing Jesus to be a person rather than a separate and divine force. We claim heresy. So the Samaritan, this heretic, is the person on the road willing to help. The Levite, keeper of laws, is so committed to what is right and forward on the path that he has forgotten to hold compassion for that which is to the side. The priest, again, so committed to looking toward Jerusalem, toward God, that he has forgotten what might be around him, reflecting the face of God. But in the Jewish tradition, one would have had a priest, a Levite. This is kind of like those bar jokes where there's always three people. In any reasonable story in old Judea, there would have been a priest and a Levite and an Israelite, the everyone else of our in-group. And so this story twists and turns that. Instead of having an excellent godly man and a legally righteous man and an everybody else everyday guy, we suddenly have and a heretic, the enemy, the other, the person you are supposed to identify with in this story, as A.J. Levine exposits, is suddenly not the person who is on the inside, but the person you have always been taught is against you, is fundamentally different in a way that you cannot comprehend or allow. The Samaritan. And that Samaritan then is about to be kind to the other you, the person who you could imagine in need of help, who might be you. What will be your reaction? This is why the story of the Samaritan is such a powerful story of forgiveness, of interconnection, because it forces us to move inside of that space of the other. It forced people 2,000 years ago to do so. It forces us to acknowledge ourselves, perhaps as the one in need of help, not our competent superhero selves on the journey, but the one who has been knocked off the road and could use a hand up, could use some care. A.J. Levine reminds us that in this time, there was no, oh, the Samaritans, like the Good Samaritan hospitals and the Good Samaritan healthcare workers. There was no such thing as good. And yet we are invited to step inside that bad Samaritan and become an understood Samaritan, a person who is complex and compassionate, to perhaps, instead of being each other's enemies, instead of being people fundamentally set against each other, to join together in understanding. Just one chapter before this parable, Jesus with his disciples, his entourage, are going to Jerusalem. They've stopped off at a Samaritan village and asked for hospitality. And as A.J. Levine said, the Samaritans refuse them hospitality because they're Jews with their faces set toward Jerusalem. And two of the apostles, James and John, clothed in their apostolic best and ready to do the righteous thing, say to Jesus, "Lord, shall we call down fire from heaven and destroy this village?" And Jesus had to stop and explain to them that when people are not hospitable toward you, your next move isn't drop a bomb from the Lord upon them. So this story comes back around as a secondary reminder to people who are having a hard time with one another. And today, we bring this back around again as a fundamental reminder that there is forgiveness, that there is proportional response, that when we are finding ourselves full of anger and fire and lack of understanding, when we are finding ourselves in sickness or in need of care, it is not simply the people most like us or the people already inside of our circle who might be able to offer that care, but it is in the reaching out, the remembering of a larger interconnectedness, the basic reminder that there may be a healing place further in the future, further away from the reaching out we are used to doing, that we might find ourselves moving out of conflict and into care and interdependence in the asks that we make for our own healing and that we offer for the healing of others. In this, we might build a new way. In this, we might find ourselves opening new doors, finding new paths, or simply along the same path, looking at things in an unexpected way because we have found that what is along the edges is worthy once more of our notice. And so, in this time, most especially, when openness, trust, and care are so hard to find during the week, in the news, in our wider world, we ask for healing for ourselves, for our country, for the many who we perceive as those we have grudges with, those we need those who are part of our interdependence, even when we wish that they weren't. So let us rise in body or in spirit, taking our teal hymnals, number 1017. Let us challenge ourselves and one another to build a new way and give thanks for those who are our hymn leaders, who help us to move along that road in song.
Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame and sending forth our children to carry the flame as they continue their religious education in the Rainbow Room downstairs. And can a child like to come up and help us extinguish the flame? Anybody? All right, and carry the flame.
All right,
Okay.
let us go ahead and extinguish her.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry within our hearts until we are together again. Oh, that's it.
Sing our children out. Children,
And remember as you go the lesson we have learned together, to seek the light of truth, to tend the fire of caring, always returning to the warmth of this community.
and so it is as we go. May we remember our courage, our love, our compassion, and that deep well of interconnectedness that binds us together beyond space and time and death, always in a greater love that holds us all. Blessed be on your journey this week.